Hi, welcome to Discussion of Birth. I'm Danielle. We wanted to put a little intro video together for you so you can see who each one of us are that work on this channel together. We've been getting a lot of feedback and comments saying, how do they know that? Where do they come from? And what is their background? So we thought this would kind of fill you in, but feel free to message and comment, ask us questions. We want to hear from you. We've been loving the feedback and all the responses and the experiences. It's really been great to hear your experiences too. Clearly, you know mine. My son's name is Gavin. Gavin's story is on the page. It's on the channel, so you can go ahead and watch it anytime. I was an uninformed parent. I didn't know, first-time mom. I really didn't know anything about my body, didn't know anything about pregnancy, birth, after. I didn't know anything. So this channel was made because of that, because of all the things that we've learned. And I learned it the hard way, and my son would be 7. So we really want people to be informed and making the best possible decisions that they can. So we hope that this channel helps you, and please feel free to contact us if there's a topic that we haven't covered that you really want to hear about, or maybe we covered something but you want to hear a little bit more. Please reach out to us, email us, send us a message, find us on Facebook, comment on here. We are listening and we are hearing you. And thank you for all the support and all the love. Like, it's just been really awesome of all the stuff that we've been getting, the messages and all that. Thank you. We really appreciate it because we are all moms and we all have lives, and getting together and doing this, it's fun. It's a lot of fun getting together, but at the same time, it is a lot of work. So it's really nice to hear the feedback from everybody that they're really liking the videos, loving the videos. Like, it's just been really awesome to get the information out there to you, because I didn't know, and I wish I had a place where there was information for me to look for back when I was having my child. So I hope this channel helps you, and we're really grateful for you for watching. I hope you enjoy this video and continue watching. We love you. Take care.
I'm Megan, and I got connected with this group and these women after the birth of my second child. I have 2 children, a boy and a girl. My daughter is just turned 8 and my son is 4. After my first delivery, I was interested in having a VBAC. I had kind of an unpleasant C-section with my first. I had chorioamnionitis, and I just felt, I didn't have a great experience. I had a difficult recovery from my C-section. I know some people don't, but I did. And so I was just looking into that, but nothing that I was going to plan on taking any risks. But I did end up having a uterine rupture with my second child, and he came very close to dying and was born without a heartbeat. And he ended up being in the NICU for a significant amount of time under cooling therapy. And so I started to write about my experience because it was kind of isolating to me to have something really traumatic like that happen. And when I started to question some of the ideologies that lead people to make riskier decisions or the natural childbirth movement, I started to realize, well, actually, I got a lot of feedback and a lot of flack on my page and things from people. So that's what got me connected with everybody else here in discussing these topics. And after that, I just really was committed to trying to identify how we can normalize all different types of safe birth to try to take the pressure off of parents who are, facing this new chapter in their lives and trying to make all the right decisions and researching and doing all of those things. But with so many different options out there, I was really focused on how to try to make it safest for them. I live in the Western New York area, and I have noticed an increase of providers in this area that are kind of lay providers that are trying to encourage things like out of hospital birth. And because of that and the uptick of it, it's become increasingly more of an interest to me to convey the safety of that, as I still am at the age where a lot of my friends are having babies for the first time or considering things like that or might look into that. And so many people right in my area are looking into things without maybe necessarily knowing the potential differences in credentials for different midwives and knowing what's safer in terms of a hospital birth versus a birth center birth versus an unassisted birth or a home birth, and all the different options and those choices. And it's just important to me that people truly get true informed consent, which I think is missing from the conversation a lot. And so I just hope that, because so often the natural childbirth movement paints things with such rose-colored glasses and perspective, I hope that my goal is to not scare anybody or anything like that, but to just be realistic and have honest dialogue about it. And about all things parenthood. Obviously, we're talking about a lot of different things on our channel that you kind of face from the moment you find out that you're pregnant all the way through parenthood and all those choices along the way.
Hi, I'm Marissa. I am a mom from the wonderful Pacific Northwest. I am a part of Discussion of Birth because of my history in trying to have a home birth, being a doula, and also because I read Danielle's story as it unfolded with Gavin, and I became passionate about women knowing the risk and their rights involving home birth. I was okay with it before. Just as soon as everything started happening with Gavin, and it really kind of changed things for me. I really thought there was a way to do this safely, and truthfully there isn't, without redoing the whole system. So thank you so much for letting me be part of this. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
I go by Ange on the internet, which is good enough for me. I have two boys, one in college, one in high school. I came here by a rather long route. I worked for a children's hospital for 10 years in the IT department and the lab. And I learned a lot of things. One of them is bad things happen to everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, how well educated you are, how much money you have, what religion you believe in. It happens to everybody. So there's no reason it can't happen to you, which is kind of sobering. And I learned that before I got pregnant. So when I came time to choose the hospital I was delivering at, I knew that the children's was running the NICU at the hospital that I chose. And I'm like, well, it never hurts to have the best care on hand. Probably won't need it. Everything's fine. So I went into labor, and apparently what happened to my son is maternal fetal hemorrhage, where your baby starts bleeding out through the placenta into your circulation. And as a result is basically bleeding out in utero with no visible sign that anyone can see from the outside. Fetal monitoring caught it. We had an emergency C-section. He came out. They did not even swing him past my bed. He went straight to the NICU. And at that point, I was like, obviously he needs the NICU. So I spent the next, hour in a kind of horrible limbo. And then they sent someone around to say that he was doing okay and breathing on his own. And I was like, okay, fine. So he did actually suffer injury from that incident, and he has hemiplegia, which is a form of cerebral palsy. He's doing well now. But it made me very keenly aware of what can go wrong in birth and how vitally important it is to have help right when you need it, where you are. And so then we'll skip ahead to looking up information for a rare disorder my friend had. She lost her firstborn child to it. It's called antiphospholipid syndrome, causes severe growth restriction in utero. He was born too early and he died. So I was looking that up, stumbled upon discussion of birth, discussion of home birth, found people trash talking NICU, hospitals, doctors, pissed me right off. I was like, home birth is one thing. If you want to have a home birth, that's okay. But leave the people who are going to save babies' lives and mothers' lives out of it. And then I realized that was part of their whole thing. The whole thing was, let's make people not trust the doctors who are caring for them. And then I was like, that's it, game on. I just, It's one thing to make your own choices. It's another thing to deprive other people of choices. And the lying, of course, gets to me. So I've stuck with it for quite a while now. Met a lot of great people along the way.
Hi, I'm Candace. I'm part of the team here. I kind of got into the birth world, I guess you could say, back in, oh my goodness, probably 2008, 2009. And I was involved with car seat groups online, and that's kind of where you meet your group of people. And with those groups, I kind of got a lot of misinformation, all about birth, vaccines, everything like that. So where I started was on the opposite side of where I am now. And I've changed a lot and grown. And I think when I became more into the birth field was actually Danielle's story, and kind of started focusing more on the bad side, I guess, of home births instead of the peachy side that you see online and everybody kind of talks about. And I think that's when I started opening my eyes a little bit more and coming around. And that was around the same time I had, I want to say, my second child. So I have three. My oldest is just turned 14. And then I have an almost 10-year-old and a 7-year-old who will be 8 next month. So they're kind of spaced out. The first one was a C-section. The labor was just not going like it should have been. And so we decided on a C-section. And after that, I joined the car seat groups and was told that I was baited and switched and all that, and kind of got into the birth world that way, the natural minded, I should say. And so when I got pregnant and had my other one 4.5 years later, I was set on a VBAC. Like, nobody was going to tell me no. All the birth groups I was in at the time, and especially the car seat groups, like, you can't go in and be induced, go the latest you can. And in return, I will say I had a very great medical team on my side. I lived in like an Amish area, so they were used to seeing more natural, I guess. I won't say natural, but they were more open, I guess you could say, than I would have found elsewhere. But I had a strong head OB at the practice, and she kind of saw me through my pregnancy and saw that I was not changing my mind. So they try to make it as safe as possible. I went to 42 weeks. I did have a VBAC. It was induced. But shortly after, I realized how many risks I took. So got pregnant with the second one kind of shortly after. They're about 21 months apart. And ended up having another VBAC, or I'm sorry, not having a VBAC with that one. It was an induction, and his heart rate dropped really bad. So it was a stat C-section was put under. And had a C-section. So I think with his birth, I kind of realized the risk I took and everything. But again, I will say I had great care. I was in the hospital, all that. So with all that said, I got more into the birth world and kind of helped make a safe VBAC group, because I saw a lot of the misinformation I was fed and didn't want that information for other people out there. So that's where I am today, and met so many good friends online, and that kind of all had the same focus. We all do. We just want everybody to have a safe birth, and that's that. So I'm Candace.
Hey, well, I'm Karen, and I'm a chemistry lab manager. I live in the South, and I'm a mother of 2, and they are going to be 28 and this in June, and then 25 in December. So they're grown. And I did have natural childbirth. And it was at the time, it was very important to me. And I went to LHJ League meetings ahead of time, because that's the kind of person I am, very planning and plan A, plan B. And that was valuable in some respects, although it was kind of funny, because I think almost everyone in my group had a home birth and was homeschooling. And so here I am, and I mean, I knew I was not going to have a home birth, and I didn't think I would homeschool. But I learned one valuable thing about breastfeeding is there is no schedule. just nurse. Okay. So I did learn that. And it was lucky for me. And I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. And I did make some good friends. And I just kind of didn't realize the whole home birth world, even though I was kind of part of it. But at that time, the St. Louis area had an OB who did home births. You know, he was very famous. If you didn't want to use your home, he would rent a hotel room, and his my doula, who was a RN, like a L&D RN, she would nurse for him at these births. But she didn't mind coming to the hospital, and she was an L&D nurse, so she wasn't too too biased, somewhat biased, because that's why I thought, well, I hate needles. I don't want an epidural. So I managed that. But in retrospect, it's a thing. It happened. It was fine. But I realized I didn't have to go through all that pain. Once I learned that what I thought that the baby would get drugged, that's what they told me in the Leche League meeting. It would drug the baby and he couldn't nurse. But I learned later that's not true. So that sort of started, and what drew me into this whole thing, it was like one of my friends was going to a birthing center in Charleston, and she needed somebody, because that's 2 hours away. She needed somebody to come and stay with her other 3 children, so she didn't have to take them all. It was okay. They had whole family appointments. This is the Charleston Birth Center, which later illegally delivered, I believe, her 5th and 6th and 7th, because they're not supposed to go that far, in parity. But so I did, and she came back right away. They texted me, and she said, oh, it's just boring. After they let her go, after a few minutes, and she wanted to do the tub. And so I was so worried about that. It just didn't seem like it was good. So that's how I found the Skeptical OB. I just read, like in 2 weeks, I did the whole archive. And Ange was a commenter there, and so was Candace and other people that we know together. And that's kind of how, and then when they started the VBAC group, and I was asked to be a moderator. It's just, to me, it's a feminist issue because women are not getting the information that they need. And it is just like so many other feminist issues. We're our own worst enemies by claiming the opposite. Yeah, you can be empowered and you can have a free birth, or you don't need the doctor. You don't need to do what the hospital says because it's your body. But really, since it's all based on lies, it's not feminism. It's the opposite.
I am Madison. I am a 31-year-old mother. I have a daughter who was born via C-section, non-emergency, but unplanned C-section in the summer of 2017. Prior to having my daughter, I was always very concerned with, even before being a mother was something that was on the horizon for me, I've always known that natural birth, vaginal birth, things like that were really important to me. Flash forward to my pregnancy and my labor and delivery with my daughter, there were some complications that came up that, again, were non-emergency complications, but still resulted in me having a surgical delivery of her. And I had spent my whole pregnancy reading books like Ina May's Guide to Childbirth and really familiarizing myself. I truly believed that the only thing that could stand between a birth-giving mother and having a natural vaginal birth was her emotions and her mind, that there is nothing that mind over matter can't conquer. When I was on the operating table for my daughter, some things that were personally scary for me did happen, that it took me until the last year to recognize that most of those things happened because the hospital fought so hard for me to be able to have a vaginal birth. So flash forward a couple months after my daughter's birth, and I find a newly opened home birth midwifery company that opened in my city. And I live in New York State, so we do have some stricter regulations than are offered in other states. I'm learning now that the regulations are more strict on just the licensing, not the type of birth that is allowed. It's kind of a free-for-all when it comes to out-of-hospital births, and there aren't a lot of restrictions on what is or isn't allowed to happen outside of a hospital. So I began following a certain midwife long before my second pregnancy ever happened. We had communicated via social media many times before. It was a group and particularly an owner that I really believed in and I looked up to as somebody who was fighting the good fight. Somebody who just wanted to see mothers and babies being treated with respect and dignity in childbirth, etc., and so on. June 2019, the end of June, I find out that I'm pregnant with my second child. And this would be my boyfriend, who we are still somehow together. We have forged through what has happened with a lot of grace and dignity, considering what happened to us. I found out I was pregnant and immediately I knew I wanted to work with that home birth midwife. I knew she took VBAC candidates. I knew she allowed Tolax with her company. I had kind of been under the impression that some of the things that happened in my labor with my daughter were unpreventable. And I went to my first appointment thinking maybe she'll turn me down. And I was open to that and I was ready to accept it. But she didn't, which I thought meant that I was the perfect candidate for a birth with her. And I sadly learned that for most out-of-hospital midwives, there is no such thing as the imperfect candidate for birth. I had my entire pregnancy with them. They were a little bit more medically based than a lot of places who focus on out-of-hospital birth are. They did have some things that I was required to do. They wanted me to test glucose, but they didn't do it in the traditional way. I did Group B strep testing, all of that stuff. I did have required appointments I had to go for. It wasn't necessarily a free-for-all. But February 24th, 2020, so just over a year ago, I had a very long, very grueling, and very dangerous labor with them that resulted in the death of my son. I can't get into too many of the details of it because we are still in the legal process and pursuing legal repercussions. And so I can't give the details of it. And when I am free to give them, I will. I swear to everybody who's watching this that I will. So over the one thing I will say is that as soon as I knew my son was dead, I knew from the things that happened while I was in labor that it was professional misconduct. It was deceit. There were lies told to me. I didn't even need the hospital to confirm certain things to me before I knew that the labor I was having was not the labor I was told I was having. So I came out of an emergency C-section and found out that my son was dead. And before anybody told me I should fight it, I was ready to fight it. So pretty quickly, I started kind of speaking out, but trying to be careful because I didn't want to do anything that would jeopardize a lawsuit. And I quickly found the group on Facebook that I actually met Danielle through, and that's how I got involved in this. The one thing that I do want to say, because it's not specific to my case, it is a broad spectrum for anybody who has experienced out-of-hospital birth, whether or not it turned out great, whether or not you and your baby are fine, whether or not you're flourishing, whether or not somebody died. Almost none of the choices that we made to lead us there were well-informed. Almost no parent who has lost a baby in childbirth out of hospital actually knew what was happening to them. And I think it's really important to say that because this is something that midwifery and doulas and this entire industry of people who's focused on natural childbirth and out of hospital birth likes to say is that we're here for you to have choices. We're here for you to have options. We are here to provide you with the experience that you want. Very little is communicated to us when we are in the process of choosing our providers. Very little is communicated to us when we are in the process of going through our prenatal care. And when we're in labor, it's like a firewall between us and the truth. I don't know a single mother who lost a baby in childbirth outside of the hospital who didn't know something was wrong, but was told it was okay. Who didn't know something was wrong, but was told this is just your emotions. This is just your feelings. Trust us. We are the professionals. And whether or not you feel sympathy, empathy, or compassion for us, you might be somebody who's watching these videos who knows about the story of Gavin, who is Danielle's son, or knows about the case that's unfolding currently in Nevada, or even people who know my midwife and my doula, and you don't want to believe that it is possible that these people who have built themselves up on such a high pedestal could do something so deceitful and truthfully evil. If you took the games that they were playing with us, our lives, and the lives of our children, and put it into any other context, there would be a unanimous support from everybody. But for some reason, the home birth and natural birth community have decided that if you do not support practices that are routinely killing children, you do not support women's choices. The fact of the matter is, almost no woman would choose the death of her child, even over the potential death of herself. I would gladly trade places with my son to be able to give my boyfriend the gift of his only child being alive. And while I can't speak to too many of the details of what happened to me out in public yet, there is so much work to be done because babies are dying. And this isn't my plea to the world, because most people understand that a dead baby under any circumstance is unacceptable. This is me begging people to realize that the balance between personal choice, personal responsibility, and free will does not hang in the lives of our children. And we need to stop allowing people to play games with innocent babies' lives when all that is being earned from it is notoriety of people who don't care when the babies die.